That we already knew. But her stupidity in not imagining the political price that she would pay for that. And, well, there'll be another war along in a minute in Iran. Better stay tuned. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway. The mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway. The world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
Let me sweep out the trash first and foremost. The lowlife Deputy Prime Minister of Britain, Angelarayner, cigarette dangling from her lips, boasting about how she splits her beaver to entice and divert from the members of Parliament opposite. A woman who might well have auditioned for Ina Sharples back in the 1960s or 70s. This lowlife is a mascot of Tony Blair's Labour Party, nowadays led by Keir Starmer. More about Tony Blair in just a minute. This woman is a mascot, like John Prescott was a working class mascot for Tony Blair. A fig leaf to hide the ugliness of his nether regions. Angelarayner is fond of her nether regions, talks about them all the time. And as I said, she's trash. She is exactly the kind of trash that would be lampooned in a soap opera. But she's done very, very well for herself. I knew her when she was a recipient of welfare benefits. I knew her when she was a battling trade union official, fighting for the downtrodden, the voice, the face of the new working class resistance. She's now a multi-millionaire. I know that because it's all on the public record. Angelarayner, the mascot, is in fact a betrayer of everything that she once claimed to have stood for. She has just moved. Now, for those who don't know the geography of England, let me make this clearer. She's an MP in Greater Manchester, a tough working class part of the country, once part of the Labour heartland, once the capital of the Great Red Wall. Labour held every single seat in the Manchester City Council until we, the Workers' Party, took one of their seats off their own deputy leader. Labour's strength in Manchester is an indispensable part of any Labour government going forward. So she's moved to Brighton and Hove, the home of the Liberal, the Green, and the oh so achingly wealthy, but don't wear it on your wrist. Do you know what I mean? She's moved to the south coast of England whilst representing the northern industrial city of Manchester. She has no need of accommodation in London because there she lives in the splendidly ornate Admiralty Arch, which is the residence given gratis, free, by the people, a grateful people, to holders of the office of Deputy Prime Minister. So she represents Manchester and lives and works in the Admiralty Arch in London. So what do? Apart from saving £40,000 in tax, and remember she's the one who once tweeted that tax avoidance costs lives. It's perfectly legal, but it costs lives. Well, by registering her new £800,000 apartment in Brighton and Hove on the south coast, she has saved herself £40,000 by declaring that it is her primary residence. Now, if I was a tax inspector, I'd be looking rather more closely at that claim. How do you define someone's principal residence? How often is she going to be in this £800,000 apartment in Brighton? Not often, because when she's not in London in the Admiralty Arch, she'll have to be in Manchester with her constituents. Won't she? Perhaps, won't she? I should put a different intonation on that. It may very well be that she is preparing a chicken run to Brighton and Hove, which would mean that Labour has abandoned hope in its own industrial red wall heartlands and can now only even dream of holding parliamentary seats amongst the university-educated, bourgeois, new Labour voters brought on board the party's ship by Tony Blair. On to Tony Blair. Some people say I'm obsessed by him. This was put to me 3 or 4 times today in response to this poll that we are running now. Is Tony Blair a war criminal? I am obsessed by Tony Blair because he killed 1 million people in my name, in the name of the British people, in the name of the British Parliament. Him and George Bush killed 1 million Iraqis. They had already been slaughtering 1 Iraqi child every 6 minutes of every day and night through their sanctions before they actually went in to finish the job. And they have killed 1 million Iraqis. The problem with Blair is, unlike George W. Bush, he won't retire to a presidential library where he can colour in his books. Blair is the bad penny that keeps turning up, whether it's trying to subvert the decision of the British people to leave the European Union, or whether it's on COVID, or whether it's on digital ID. You cannot turn the television on without seeing this ghoul, this war criminal on your screen. And that has been a source of never-ending anger for me, as will be plain as the maker of The Killings of Tony Blair, again a film of which I'll speak later. But now he's back in the Middle East. The man who killed 1 million Iraqis is now with Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, in charge of turning the benighted, genocided Gaza Strip, a mountain of 1 million bones, the flesh and blood and bones of 1 million innocents, is there running through the fetid alleyways of what's left of Gaza, and Tony Blair and Trump's son-in-law are about to turn it into the Riviera, with a Trump Towers, with casinos and bordellos and condominiums and everything except Palestinians whose land it is. They are to be deported, voluntarily deported somewhere as yet unknown. This man will simply not give up. He hasn't killed enough people. He hasn't made enough money. His hands don't have enough blood on them. So, as long as Tony Blair is alive, as long as I am alive, and after me, my daughters and my sons, we will continue to hunt and haunt this war criminal, Tony Blair. That's not the only reason for continuing to be, well, interested in him. He's running the British government. Keir Starmer's strings are pulled by him. And if you think that's bad, wait till you see the guy who's about to take Keir Starmer's job from him. Wes Streeting, with a majority of 500, is the next in line to be Labour leader and Prime Minister. He is the unacknowledged son, the bastard son of Tony Blair. And Blair's life will continue as the occupant of 10 Downing Street, if and when I'm right and Wes Streeting ascends to that position. Mind you, it will not be for long. Labour has now reached 13% in the public opinion polls. They could not even win Brighton and Hove, especially with Angela Rayner as their candidate. I must press on because there's so much to discuss. Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, Information Minister, Culture Minister, Economic Minister, almost every single member of the Yemen government was murdered in an airstrike by Netanyahu and Israel. Now, parking for one moment, though I'm loath to park it, why do these people keep meeting in one place in the middle of a war so that Israel can kill them? Have they ever heard of Zoom? Do they know that you don't actually have to sit in the same room to make it easier for Israel to murder you? Parking that. What does Israel think it has achieved by this act of state murder? Has it made Jews safer? Has it made Israelis safer? Has it made the members of the Israeli government safer? This is something I need to tell all these Orientalists dancing on the grave, if grave it is, of Abu Ubaidah, the much loved, treasured voice of the Palestinian resistance these last 2 years past. We don't know who he is, but Israel knows who he is because they have killed 400 members of his family trying to murder him. And now they say they have murdered him. But here's the point. Do you think there won't be another Abu Ubaidah? Do you think there will not be a queue of people to take his microphone? Do you think the Yemenis will not be able to produce another prime minister? What are you achieving by these things? The Palestinian resistance in Gaza, which continues until this minute to take a terrifying toll on the Israeli invaders of their land, has more fighters now than it did when this began 2 years ago, post-October 7. This massacre, genocide, has it crushed the Palestinian resistance? No, it has made them bigger. It has made them better. It has made them more ready to fight and sacrifice in order to repel the invader from their land. Which part of that do Western commentators and benefactors and settlers in Palestine, which part of that don't they understand? If you've killed, as you certainly have, 100,000 mothers, don't you think their sons will be determined to take revenge upon you? If you've killed, as you certainly have, 100,000 young boys, don't you think their brothers will hate you forever and be determined to take their revenge? What about the daughters and the sons of all the people you've killed? Do you think they're going to forget their mothers and their fathers Some of them are carrying the flesh of their eviscerated relatives on the back of their neck. If you've seen the pictures that I have seen today, a young man getting into an ambulance with the body parts of his family sticking to his head and his neck and his back. Do you think these people are ever going to go quietly into your good night? Or do you not understand that they will try forever to kill you back? Which part of this do Western political leaders, benefactors, and settlers not understand? Iran might very well be at war with Israel by the end of this show. I told you that last week. It's now imminent, according to all governments who've withdrawn their citizens and diplomats from both Tel Aviv and from Tehran. How much clearer does it need to be? Iran and Israel are about to fight another war. But this time, it's no more Mr. Nice Guy for the Iranians. They are, as Scott Ritter pointed out on this show just a couple of weeks ago, if that, Iran is legally entitled to launch an attack on Israel right now. Legally entitled. Under the laws of self-defense, Israel is openly stating that it's going to attack Iran. Israel already did attack Iran. Iran would be within its legal rights to launch its entire battery of ballistic missiles on top of the settler state right now, this hour. And they might well do so. Because if war is not just imminent, but ineluctable, unavoidable, why wouldn't you take the initiative in any case? Whether they take the initiative or they don't, the outcome of this next round of war will be way more significant even than the highly significant third round. You'll recall how difficult it was for Israel to survive the extraordinary precision and power of Iran's missile forces. Well, guess what? They got more powerful in the couple of months since the end of the 12-day war. And moreover, Chinese and Russian defense batteries and systems are now in place to make Israel's overflights of the capital city of Tehran and other strategically important places way more dangerous than it was before. The Palestinian resistance continues its a sad and melancholy fact that the Prime Minister of Yemen is the only Arab Prime Minister to be martyred in the defense of the million dead and mutilated in the Gaza Strip. Surely he is bound for heaven. Those who did not do so, indeed those who intercepted the Yemeni missiles, those who facilitated the Israeli murder flights that hit Sana'a and killed Yemen's government, are surely bound for somewhere else. Our first guest tonight, Tadhg Hickey, he's bound for Gaza. You'll want to hear more. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. I don't believe that the mainland European countries give a toss about Britain, and I'm certain that the United States would not sacrifice itself for Britain. That's why I say Britain is completely marginalized. As for the Trident missiles, of course, if the United States, which has dual control over these missiles, gave permission for them to be launched, of course, they would incinerate Russian cities. But what good would that do us? Because we'd all be dead, including the people that fired the missiles. You feel me?
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
So the poll tonight: is Tony Blair a war criminal? The former British Prime Minister, former peace envoy, and the man responsible for 1 million dead people in Iraq and the cascade of ISIS and Al-Qaeda around the globe, including onto our own streets. Is Tony Blair a war criminal? Next week, it's do bears defecate in the woods? Is Tony Blair a war criminal? Yes or no? 32,000 people have voted already. You can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway. You can vote on my X whilst it's still there. They've just permanently suspended our One State Palestine Twitter account, as they earlier suspended permanently our No to War, No to NATO, No to War Twitter account. Hey, that Elon Musk, he's real big on free speech, especially Tommy Robinson's free speech. Maybe more about that later if I can interject it. So you can vote on my Telegram channel, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, on the YouTube stream. And if you're watching on the YouTube stream, please subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up to the show, tell all your friends and followers that you're watching us broadcasting live right now. And if you're one of my gold chip Patreon followers, your vote will tonight for the first time also be recorded, because we could not continue this show if it was not for the support of our patrons and on the support of those who will give on our website, about which I'll tell you later. If you want to call the show, it's toll free in the US and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. It's free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 0808 196 5522, and the worldwide number is 0044 203 966 2625. 32,000 people have voted in the poll already, and it's 99, 97, 97, 98 say yes, Tony Blair is a war criminal. So that outcome is not going to change, but the volume of the voting could become politically significant. So don't lose your chance to get in on the voting. Our good friend Tadhg Hickey, formerly of this parish, stood in for me when I was absent not that long ago, is an Irish comedian, a writer, an actor, and an activist of the very highest order. And he's also a very brave man. Despite having a very new child, Tadhg is on board the latest flotilla floating to Gaza. I hope that he can hear me. Tadhg, welcome, and bon voyage, as they say. Give us the state of play of the flotilla so far, will you?
Absolutely, George. Thanks for having me. Let me see if I can give you a little look around. Hopefully you can hear me. So that's the seas of, I would assume, Barcelona. We left a couple of hours ago. These are my
beautiful,
my lovely co-mates. And I'll show you a bit outside. There we have it. So yeah, so we set sail.
Oh man.
It looks nice, isn't it?
Oh, fabulous. There'll be thousands of people saying right now, stop the boat, let me on. It looks marvellous. Tell us
I have
about
to
your
say,
shipmates, please.
I've been lucky because my boat is one of the bigger ones. There's a fleet, as you know, and I think there's upwards of 50 boats coming from kind of all over the world. So many left today from Barcelona. There's some coming from Sicily, from Tunisia, and it really is, George. It's like humanity finding its feet again, finding its heart, finding its soul. The organisers have put this together in just a couple of months, and it's basically all the big pro-Palestinian communities around the world gathering together and saying, you know, what the enemy has is really strong organisation. So what we need to be as organised, and it really is humanity at its very best. It's a peaceful, completely non-violent mission. All we want to do is just deliver humanitarian aid to people who are starving to death because of a man-made starvation campaign. What could be more straightforward? What could be more human than that? And so, you know, what we've been saying to people is there's nothing remarkable really about what we're doing. There's nothing extraordinary about it. We're just doing the bare minimum. We're certainly not heroes. We're not going to save Gaza or any of that kind of white savior rubbish. We're kind of going to save humanity, save our own humanity, and to encourage other people to do so too. But the thing that's extraordinary is that, as you have stated earlier, that Western governments particularly have normalized what's going on right now. You know, when people say, what chance really do you have of getting there, or why are you doing this, or, you know, the selfie yacht mentality that Piers Morgan often kind of goes for. I think the bigger question, the helicopter view question, is why do we have to? Why do ordinary civilians have to give up weeks of their lives at their own cost to get on a boat? I mean, look at the state of me. I'm burnt to a crisp. I've got a big bald Irish head. I'm not a boats guy. I don't know what I'm doing. But the reason I'm here is not because I'm on a jolly. I would much rather be at home with my kids. But I'm here because the Irish government won't do the bare minimum. I'm here because the British government won't do the bare minimum, the German government, the US government. So it's actually very beautiful. It's sad that the governments are so cowardly, but it's very beautiful that the civilians have stood up and taken the responsibility to do the very basic, bare minimum, deliver aid like baby formula to starving women in Gaza right now and children, so that they can just live, they can just exist and survive. So I'm very proud to be part of it. I'm privileged because many of our Palestinian brothers and sisters can't join us. It will be too risky for them and their families. So I think what is a better illustration of the injustice of the occupation that me, some lad from Cork, attempt to sail to Gaza, but Palestinians can't attempt to even sail to their own country, let alone gain access to it, because the occupation is so brutal and so unjust.
Amen. And let me assure you, we all think you are heroes, whether you think you are or not. The risks that you're taking, the depredations of the journey, once upon a time I would have taken it myself. I was invited this very day to join the official Libyan boat, which is sailing from Tunisia, but I'm afraid those days are gone for me now. And you're doing it on behalf of all of us, and it's utterly inspiring. Tell us a bit more about your shipmates. Where do they come from? Who are they? Starting with celebrities like yourself, because you don't want to say you're a celebrity, but we all know you are. Who are the famous people, and who are the non-famous people?
Well, so there's obviously Greta Thunberg is probably one of the most famous people in the world, and having spent 2 days training with her, it's just so laughable to me that she would be described as somebody who would go on a selfie yacht, or somebody who would be going for a vanity project. I always think it's just so amusing when somebody like Piers Morgan, whose whole raison d'etre is vanity, would describe a young girl, a young woman, I should say, who has dedicated her whole life, including when she was a child, to saving the planet and to undoing the things that people like Piers Morgan endorses every breath that he takes. So Greta is one of the big, I suppose, names. Thiago, who has become a big name, is a steering committee member. Yasmin, There are one or two surprises as well, which I won't mention yet. There are one or two surprises that I probably can't say just yet. And then in terms of the ordinary people, well, you know, you've got 44 delegations from around the world. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And in the training, each delegation got up and gave a little bit about their country and the amount of support they have. And I'll just mention one. The Colombian delegation have the official endorsement of their president. And I just thought it was kind of a bit shameful that, again, my own Irish government, they don't really even acknowledge that we're going. They don't give us any support whatsoever. Something that's close to my heart is just the fact that the Irish government really stands on the backs of Irish people, because we're known as being pro-Palestine, and everyone I bumped into in Barcelona was like, Ireland, oh my God, you're so amazing. And of course, as you know, the Irish government is up to its eyes in complicity in this genocide, with their Shannon Airport being used by US military to export the weapons that continue the extermination, our central bank buying Israeli war bonds. We've got a roaring trade with the rogue state. So I think it's about time that people knew the chasm, the chasm between the Irish people and the Irish government. And that's a problem around the world. I think basically people are good people, and it's governments that are the problem. Governments are so cowardly. So you've got 44 delegations, you've people from all over the world, Asia, it's a massive Malaysian contingent, Colombia, as I say, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Britain, Ireland, Argentina. It's just good people standing up. You've got doctors, you've got nurses, you've got clowns like myself, you've got yoga teachers, and you've got people that just care about humanity. And I suppose one thing that combines us all just chatting today and over the last few days is, and it's a very basic human thing, we don't believe that our lives or our children's lives are worth any more or any less than anyone else's life. It's just an accident of geopolitics and of geography that the children in Gaza are in the hell they're in right now. So whilst I miss my kids right now, and of course I do, and as you say, I've got young kids, I've got 2 young daughters, I would rather miss them now than have to say to them in a few years' time when they ask me, what did I do during the Gaza Holocaust? I hate to have to say to them, not enough. I didn't do everything that I could. So at least I can say I'm trying my best. And more than that, it's not just we're going to try something and we know we're going to fail. We are determined to get to Gaza. We are determined to open up a humanitarian corridor. Flotillas in the past got there. It's important to remember that when people say, oh, you'll never get there, you'll be intercepted or you'll be attacked or whatever. Flotillas before in history over the last 15 or more years, some of them have been successful and they've broken the siege. And that's our complete intention, because if we weren't intercepted, that would be yet another war crime in the litany of war crimes by Israel, because we're in international waters. We're protected as such. So that's our aim and that's our ambition. And as I say, we're not going there to try and heal the world. We're going to deliver the aid and go, and then people can come behind us, and there's going to be more and there's going to be more. And it's never going to stop, because there's many people like me, millions and hundreds of millions, that are in this for the long haul. We will never, ever, ever abandon the Palestinians, because they teach us life.
You're a great man, Tadhg Hickey, a credit to Old Ireland, and you have the good wishes, indeed the prayers for those who are believers, of everyone who has watched you and will watch this interview in the course of the next week. Please keep us updated as you go along, and we will promote the flotilla to the very best of our ability. Tadhg Hickey, Irish comedian, actor, writer, and humanitarian, a real man. Thanks for joining us on the
Thank you, brother. Keep your eyes on
shows. I don't know about you, I found that intensely moving. Is Tony Blair a war criminal? Yes or no? Get your votes in the next hour and 10 minutes. It's important that the biggest number of votes is recorded. Let me take a quick break to recover my savoir-faire, and I'll be right back. Donald, what would you like to say?
Well, hi, George. I hope I can keep myself relevant because of my blood pressure, which goes up when considering that they're insulting my intelligence, in particular in regards to the Gaza situation, to say it lightly. You know, I mean, it is ridiculous how these things are characterized, particularly in the people's minds of who's right and who's wrong and who's on the best side of history, as terrorists. What is this? Is absolutely insult to the intelligence of anybody in the right-thinking human being.
It is. But we have to face something, Donald. You are an exception in Copenhagen. I never watch or listen to mainstream news or read it. But today, for some reason, I heard the Global Newsroom hourly news bulletin. And it was as different a perspective as you and I could possibly imagine. And the parallel universe that we are living in. Admittedly, more and more of our society is finding its news and its analysis in places like this, the mother of all talk shows, and other similar events. But the great majority still of our fellow citizens are getting their news and analysis from their national equivalent of the global newsroom. For them, black is white. War is peace. They are the masters of doublespeak and distortion, because I realized that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who listened to that news bulletin but did not know what you, Donald, in Copenhagen, and I, and the other people watching this know. And that's a measure of how far we've yet to travel.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Hey, we've got our first 100%. Is Tony Blair a war criminal? On Telegram, 99% say yes and 1% say no. On X, 97% say yes, 3% say no. On the YouTube community poll, it's 97.3. On the YouTube stream, it's 98.2. And on Patreon, they are the elite force. It's 100% say yes, Tony Blair is a war criminal. I just know that my good friend Terence from Reading, he's not here to speak about this, but I'm pretty sure he agrees. Terence, welcome back to the show. You wanted to talk about Yemen and Iran.
Absolutely, Mr. Galloway, and good evening to you and yours. Tory Blair is just a Tory Blair. He's a Zionist. Enough said about him. And you certainly have got to savoir-faire. Like that Scotsman had opened up with that opening salvo, magnificent. 3 points. Yemen and Iran, may God bless them. I happen to be a human who's a Roman Catholic, but there's more religion in Iran than there ever has been, and practicing religion than in the West, complete altogether. So good luck to whatever happens to the great Persian people, and however they attempted to be hijacked, they will come through it, I'm sure of that. The second point is I'd like you to convey to Professor Seyed Marandi. He reminds me very much of my old professor. I won't say his name. Very objective, nothing knee-jerk, and I wish him well in whatever happens and befalls. I hope the glorious Persia comes through it, and whatever happens, think of people like him. And the third and final point about this government, I mean, you couldn't have said it any better about Angelarayner. A complete urchin. Lamy, there is not one with any gravitas in that Labour Party, and that's more important for you. All the independent parties, Plaid Cymru in Wales. I've never voted Plaid, but they are a truly independent party. Wales, we need more independence. What say you, sir?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if she was just nobody in the Labour Party, I wouldn't have wasted my voice and my wind on her. But she's the deputy leader of something calling itself a Labour Party, and the deputy prime minister of Great Britain. And she is a lowlife, and she's on the make. And this latest instance is only the latest. she has gone from having no money at all, a recipient of state benefits, to a millionaire. And she is rolling in money. And somebody put it brilliantly on Twitter in response to me earlier this evening. They know they're only here once. They know they're a one-hit wonder. They know they are doomed already. Yeah? I mean, already they know that their government is going nowhere fast. And so it's like a dash on Supermarket Challenge, the old Dale Winton thing. They've got a big trolley and they are going to fill that trolley from the shelves. Whoever grants them, gives them, loans them, in any other way, buys them, they'll take it. And they're going to pile that supermarket trolley high. Supermarket sweep. That's my new name for Angelarayner. Thank you, Terence. Now you can make comments, of course, by scanning the QR code on the screen now on YouTube, I think, yeah. And I'll try and read them out. Wendy Gofton says, "Peace, Tadhg Hickey. You are freaking awesome." He really is, isn't he? Stop and listen. Tony Blair, like Madeleine Albright, is guilty of mass genocide. Never forget the 500,000 Iraqi children killed by this Zionist monster. I never will. GQ says, don't forget Dick Cheney. Well, he comes to me in nightmares now and again. The Happy Little Fox, a.k.a. Benji, says, somewhere in an attic, there's a portrait of Tony Blair growing more attractive. I wish I'd said that. Whispering Willow says, what a great Irishman, Tadhg Hickey. May God protect all of you on the flotillas and bring you back home safely. I was so moved by Tadhg, can't tell you. Listen, Giuliano is on the phone in London, wants to talk about celebrity. Go ahead, Giuliano.
Hello, George. Thank you for taking my call. It's not exactly celebrity, celebrite, but whatever you wanna pronounce that. I want to talk about celebrite, and then I've got a question for you, if you like. Celebrite and the connection to the UK police. Now, for those that are not familiar with this name, Celebrite is a Israeli surveillance company that sells software for the collection and analysis of digital data. Okay. Now, Yossi Carmel is the founder and CEO of Celebrite, and he clearly stated that the majority of their employees, they coming from Unit 8200. Now, the Unit 8200, apology for the long intro, but I think it's relevant. It's the main intelligence and cyber workforce within the IDF. They are behind the surveillance of phone and tracking, and they are also behind of Lavender, which is the software that they use to do the main killing in Gaza. Very, very simply. Now, why the UK police will be associated with Celebrite? That's a very good question. And also, back in March 2025, somebody requested to the West Yorkshire Police, according to the Freedom Information under the Freedom Information Act, what type of usage of data they're making, and effectively the West Yorkshire Police refused to respond. They said, we can't deny, we can't say yes, we can't say no. On the other hand, apologies, on the website of Celebrite, there are two testimonials. One is for Cumbria Police, UK, and one is for Leicestershire Police. Apology for my pronunciation. From Celebrite. So they are directly from the website of Celebrite. Now, the question is, what connection do they have with the UK police? How do they use their data? How do they hack in their phone if they do? And what do they do with the data? And why the police is using I would say a questionable Celebrite. Last thing, and I promise this is the last, one of the key value of Celebrate, according to their website, is the respect to individual rights. Well, if you pull out from the IDF, they're not exactly very famous to respect the human rights. Thank you.
Well, Giuliano, they're one big club and we're not in it. That's the main takeaway from your call. We're called the Open University of the Airwaves for a reason. You taught all of us something with your call, including me. I've never heard of Celebrate, and you've educated me and all of us on this. But they are all one big club. The British state and its local and national organs is effectively a part of the empire state, which is the United States of America, of which both Britain and Israel and Australia are adjuncts. We are occupied. We've got American nuclear weapons on our soil without Parliament even being told, never mind asked for an affirmation. We are effectively an aircraft carrier for the United States empire, as is the state of Israel. So we and Israel share intelligence, we share training of military and police. We train theirs, they train ours, we buy their spyware and the rest of it. All of that is quite widely available in the public domain. The only thing we can ask for is for our representatives to oppose it, our representatives to question it even, to highlight it even. But we don't have that. You adumbrated a list of local police forces. The local authority in every single one of those areas could have raised what you have just raised on the mother of all talk shows. They could have been raising it from their seats in these local authorities as councillors. Their members of parliament could have been raising it on the floor of the House of Commons. There could have been, as there once would have been, a widespread revolt in the House of Commons. We had 129 Labour MPs vote against Tony Blair's war on Iraq. You wouldn't get 12.9 now to do so. And that's because we have allowed a series of quislings and sheep to populate our town halls and our parliament to do the bidding of a government which is merely a vassal of the overarching American empire. So what we have to do is change that. What we have to do is, in the local elections in May, we have to reject the uni party. We have to say, whatever you do, don't vote for the uni party. Give the two cheeks of the same arse a great big boot up that arse, so that they are left bereft of any pretense that they are acting in the public's interest. Now, one blow will not do it. It'll have to be done again at the polling booth everywhere we are. It'll have to be done at the general election, where, God willing, Jeremy Corbyn will be competing for power as the leader of a new, I hope, coalition of forces, stretching from the Greens to people like me, and will be genuine competitors for power. Even that is not enough. Elections are important, and we must fight them and try to win them. But we have to build a mass movement of people in this country, millions and millions strong, who are ready to mobilize in support of these great causes that we are talking about today. And that means that we have to educate people. We have to educate, agitate, organize. That's my life's work. Join me. Now, MOATS donors, if you haven't made a donation to MOATS yet, you can do by visiting moats.tv or scan the QR code on the screen. We put your names up on the screen during the break, so keep an eye out for our Wall of Fame. A big thank you to this week's top donors: Eli Nut, Michael Power, Ahmed Al-Hamdi, James Moody, and Diana Saleh. Thank you very much indeed, all of you, for your generosity, and please do become a MOATS donor tonight. It's really easy on moats.tv. Let's go to Canada, where Lance wants to talk about the great Irishman, Tadhg Hickey. Please, Lance, go ahead.
I'm going to borrow an expression from George Galloway. I'm going to say, comparing Tadhg Hickey and George Galloway to a good man is like saying Messi is just a footballer. To me, you're both men of greatness. That's an expression you used once to describe Chris Hedges.
Yes.
Which is, I don't know if I got it right, but...
you did. You got it right. Bang on. Thanks for it, Lance.
Good. Well, I meant it. Although I don't know much about football, I meant it. And I do mean it about Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges should be president. But besides that, I just want to say thank you. I am a proud supporter of you weekly, or however it works on Patreon. And I also am a proud supporter of Tadhg Hickey. Anyway, I can't say his name.
It's a tricky name. He won't condemn you for it. Tadhg Hickey.
He doesn't seem that judgmental. And I don't know. My heart goes out to him. Can I ask you a quick philosophical question? You were in Parliament, right?
Yeah.
And when you were there, you were a man who read books, learned things, got facts. But you were there with people like David Lammy. There were people there like that then. What is it like interacting with people like that for people like you?
Well, I was known as and punished as a lone wolf. I spent most of my time in the library of the House of Commons, which is the best part about it, next to the cafeteria and the tea ladies that worked there. The librarians in the House of Commons are Britain's best librarians, but they're also amongst Britain's least used librarians. Once upon a time, when I first entered Parliament in the 1980s, the library was a very busy place. There were tons of men and women like me that were to be found in the library reading books between votes, waiting for votes. Interminable votes in those days, right up to 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, occasionally all night. So there was plenty of time to read, and the librarians were constantly being asked difficult questions, which invariably the next day they'd have a beautifully presented set of answers for you. But when I was last in Parliament, last year, 2024, the library was a ghost town. I would still go in between votes, and I'd be sitting in one of the big armchairs, and there would be absolutely nobody around me. Nobody at all around me. And the staff there, I don't want to get them in trouble, but they looked as if they could have done with more people coming in and asking them difficult questions, if you'll get my drift. Whereas, you see, one of the reasons why I was a lone wolf is I'm a non-drinker. And especially in the early days, Parliament was a very heavy drinking establishment, institution. At 1970s prices, life on Mars prices, I used to say. And the bars, and there were 19 of them, not one of which I ever set foot in, and I was in Parliament across 5 different decades, were full. When the doors, saloon doors swung open, you'd first of all be knocked over by the smell of the drink coming out, and then bowled over by the noise of the rabble inside. So you can tell that I was never popular. Somebody who makes speeches which none of them can answer, none of them can emulate, and someone who's never to be found in the bar. Someone who doesn't want anything from them and has nothing that they could ever take away. Makes you, in James Baldwin's famous words, the most dangerous of men, the man with nothing to lose. Whereas Lamy would have been in the bars. Lamy is now living the life that he could only once have dreamt of, a Rabelaisian dream for someone like Lamy, whose entire approach to politics is to lick the arse next to you, buy them a drink at public expense if you possibly can, and climb that little bit further up that greasy pole. That's the difference between someone like me or my partners. Two partners were always with me in the adjacent armchairs in the House of Commons library. One was Mr. Ben and the other was Mr. Foot. Thanks for that, Lance. Beautiful call. Top 5 in Kenya, our podcast this week. Kenya, Sierra Leone, Indonesia, and Algeria. I'll be asking Gayatri later about Indonesia. There's a bit of a rumble going on there now. Sierra Leone, I had a very good friend from Sierra Leone, Lamthia Toure, if anyone knows him. He used to work on the next press to me on the shift system at Michelin Tires in Dundee in 1973-74. If he's still alive and you know him, tell him I've never forgotten him. Top 5 in Kenya, Sierra Leone, Indonesia, and Algeria. Top 10 in Malta, Ghana, Zimbabwe, and Mauritius this week. We are one of the most popular political podcasts in the world, and you can download it by scanning the QR code on your screen now. Let's go to Phil in England, in Norwich, about Iran and Israel. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, hi, George. Thanks for a great show. If it kicks off between Iran and Israel, which I think it will Israel be tempted to use nukes? I think they will. And do you think it nearly happened in the 12-day war?
Well, we'll be talking to Professor Seyed Marandi in just a few minutes, so I'll pass on your question if you don't mind, Phil, but thank you for it, because it is the $64,000 question. Iran will comfortably defeat Israel in any conventional war, notwithstanding the desperate scramble to resupply air defenses to the settler state by the United States over the last couple of months. Desperate. But the problem is the American supply chain is stretched. It's been largely emptied by the foolhardy attempt to engage Russia in war in the Ukraine. And then it was almost overwhelmed in defense of the settler state in the 12-day war. And as everybody knows, the war ended with Iran on top. No one can deny that. It was Israel that asked for the ceasefire, not Iran. If the war had continued, not for 12 days, but say for 20 days, it's highly likely that Israel would have been overwhelmed, its infrastructure completely destroyed, its existence as a state effectively null and void. So what do they do in those circumstances? Well, they may very well use nuclear weapons, but that would, of course, destroy life as we know it amongst America's closest allies in the Persian Gulf. You can't fire nuclear weapons at Iran and not poison people with radiation sickness in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates, in Bahrain. The people that gave the jewels and the gold to Donald Trump and the airplane to fly them back in Qatar, from Qatar, their societies will be null and void after any nuclear attack on Iran. So that's the first limiter. But the second one is even more portentous. If they did fire a nuclear weapon, they'd have to be really, really sure that Iran wouldn't fire a nuclear weapon back at them. It's a bit like Harry Callaghan in Dirty Harry. I know what you're thinking, punk. Did I fire 6 shots or only 5? Do you feel lucky, punk? Well, I'll let me take a break. Professor Seyed Marandi, Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, and probably Iran's best known communicator in the English language, who has enlightened and educated millions of people around the globe. I'm always glad to see him. I'm particularly glad to see him tonight, and he's coming right up after this. As the green smoke rose, their faces flashed out pallid green and faded again as it vanished. Then slowly the hissing passed into a humming, into a long, loud, droning noise. Suddenly, a humped shape rose out of the pit, and the ghost of a beam of light seemed to flicker out after it. Forthwith, flashes of actual flame, a bright glare leaping from one to another, sprang from the scattered group of men. It was as if some invisible jet impinged upon them and flashed into white flame. It was as if each man were suddenly and momentarily turned to fire. Is Tony Blair a war criminal? Yes or no? You can vote on Telegram, t.me/George Galloway. You can vote on my X. You can vote on the YouTube community poll and on the YouTube stream. And of course, the good people of Patreon, who are 100% of the view that he is indeed a war criminal. Professor Seyed Marandi, Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, joins us at this most auspicious time. Professor, it's always a pleasure to see you. It's more important to see you perhaps tonight than any other night, as we may be on the threshold of dramatic events. Indeed, next door to you in Yemen, the most traumatic event imaginable has just taken place. The murder of virtually all of the government of Yemen, being boasted about by the perpetrators, the murderers, the gang in Tel Aviv around Benjamin Netanyahu. I posed the question earlier, what could possibly go wrong with this strategy? The idea that the Yemenis are going to give up because you slaughtered their leaders, rather than redouble their efforts, seems to be, east is east, west is west, never the twain shall meet, and all that. It seems difficult for Westerners, including the Westerners who run the settler state, to understand that simple truth. What say you?
George, one of the interesting things that has come out of this, that people came to recognize, is that actually the prime minister of Yemen, who was martyred, was from the south, and he was a Sunni. And that shows that this is not the Houthis, this is that the West tries to call them all the time. This is the people of Yemen, who are united in their support for the Palestinian people, and who have been making sacrifices for the people of Gaza in a way in which only Hezbollah has also given that degree of sacrifice. And the members of the cabinet who were martyred, they were people who dealt with civil society. They were not military commanders except for one individual. They were all dealing with health or education or the economy. They were dealing with the problems of ordinary people, the problems that the United States and the Saudis and the Emiratis and NATO created in their 7-year-long genocidal war. They too carried out a starvation siege on Yemen for 7 years, which just ended a few years ago. So the Israeli regime has only shown its brutality, and once again it's shown that it is lawless and that it does not target the military, it targets civilians. It specializes in targeting civilians, as we saw the evidence come out on Gaza. The Israelis themselves know that overwhelmingly, almost 90% of the casualties in Gaza have been civilians. So they've been lying about it. The West has been lying about it, and the Western media has been lying about it. But the people of Yemen have, as I said earlier, they've lived through 7 years of genocidal war by the Saudis. And over the past 3 years, they've been 3.5 years, the last 2 years, since the genocidal war in Gaza began, they've been bombed by the Americans and the Israelis. They're not going to change course. They're going to be more steadfast, and they're going to be more popular across the region and across the world. The Israeli regime doesn't recognize that the more it carries out strikes against Iran, the more popular Iran becomes. The more they strike Hezbollah, the more popular Hezbollah becomes. The more they strike Ansarullah and the Yemeni armed forces, the more popular Yemen becomes. So the Israeli regime can celebrate all it wants, but it is only making things worse for itself, and it is making heroes out of these martyrs, and the people who will replace them will continue down the road of resistance. The Israeli regime has made a grave mistake by continuing this genocidal war for 2 years now. Across the world, it is despised, and it has shown itself to be vulnerable. We saw how Hamas and the resistance carried out a successful operation the other night, a very impressive operation. They are very much alive, and the Israeli regime, being despised across the world, has no future in this region.
I may have missed it, but did any Arab government condemn the assassination of virtually an entire cabinet in an Arab country?
Of course not, George. All of these countries, all of the Arab countries, except for maybe one or two, they supported the Saudi and Emirati genocidal war against Yemen for 7 years. And when American ships in the Red Sea were blocking food and medicine from entering Yemen, they all supported that. And back then, by the way, Qatar and Erdogan also supported the genocidal war. They supported the genocidal war until the divide between Qatar and the Saudis and the Emiratis emerged. And then they parted ways. And then Al Jazeera started shifting its coverage and changing its tone on Yemen. So they've never been sympathetic towards the Yemeni people. They've never cared about the Yemeni people. In fact, the propaganda against Ansarullah and Yemen has been so negative that many people had a poor view of them, ordinary people across the Arab world. And then it turns out that these people who had been so demonized, including among Palestinians, turned out to be the ones who were making, alongside Hezbollah and Iran, the greatest sacrifices for the Palestinian people. And so the people of Yemen and the government and Ansarullah, who were looked down upon and belittled, now they're the shining star of the Arab world. But none of these regimes will show sympathy because they're all in the Western camp, whether it's Morocco or the Emirates, whether it's Egypt or Jordan, whether it's Turkey or Bahrain, they're all in the American camp, and none of them are going to support the Palestinian people. And of course, by extension, none of them are going to support the people of Yemen.
Now, the Yemenis are not going to take this lying down, are they? They've already shown that they are capable at any moment and have repeatedly struck infrastructure targets inside the Zionist state. They're likely to do so again, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. And we've seen how Yemeni missiles and drones have become increasingly advanced. And in their latest attack on the Israeli regime in recent days, we saw that they scored. But also the Israelis, every time that Yemen strikes, they have to use their surface-to-air missiles. And they are already depleted to a large degree. And they're also giving information about the status of their weapon systems and where they are. So when the time comes, when there will be a major conflict between Iran and the Israeli regime, each one of these Yemeni missiles are going to be able to collect an enormous amount of intelligence for that day, and they're going to be helping to deplete the Israeli surface-to-air missile systems for that day. But also, as Yemeni missiles become more advanced, they're going to become more dangerous for the regime. That when these missiles explode in Tel Aviv or elsewhere, or even when they're intercepted, it creates fear. It prevents people from moving to Palestine. It prevents people from working in Palestine. It prevents tourists from going back to Palestine. It only makes life continue to stay abnormal. And so what the people of Yemen are doing to the Israelis, the damage that they're doing is enormous, whether their missiles strike their targets or not. But more importantly, what they're doing is that they're shaming the rest of the region. Turkey, which has an enormous army, does nothing for the Palestinian people, yet Yemen, which has survived years of genocidal war, and today has been fighting against the Americans and the Israelis for 2 years, they are using their military to help the Palestinian people. The Egyptian armed forces, which lie right on the other side of the border of Gaza, they do nothing, yet Yemen sacrifices its soldiers and even its highest ranking officials, as does Hezbollah. So this is changing the mentality of people across the region towards the resistance, towards those who have been hypocritical. And it also shows the weakness of the Israeli regime, that they cannot deter the people of Yemen, despite all of the support that they get from the collective West. Because this is not Israel that's carrying out this war. This is the entire West that's carrying out this war. Israel is a puny regime, completely dependent on handouts from North America, from Europe, and from Australia and elsewhere. And of course, as the West declines, it's going to be more difficult for them to continue giving the sort of handouts that they've been getting in the past. But this puny regime, which is totally dependent, with all the technology that it has failed to deter the people of Yemen for the last 2 years. And this is something that history will remember. Yemen, what they've done for humanity over the last 2 years is unique.
And ditto the resistance inside the invaded Gaza territory itself. The Americans are openly acknowledging, and even Israeli officials, usually retired, are openly acknowledging that the resistance has more fighters than it did before October 8th and the beginning of this genocide, has more and more successes. I mean, you mentioned last night, but there's another going on right now, a security situation, in their words, which is extremely serious right now. It may be that more prisoners of war have been taken who will be described as hostages, even though they're in a foreign army which is invading an internationally recognized occupied territory. The resistance is not going away in Gaza, and killing Abu Ubaidah, if he has been killed, they've killed 400 of his family members. 400. So they may well have killed him. They certainly are now claiming that they have. But that's going to change nothing except for the worse for them.
Yes, I remember when Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was martyred. I was in Beirut, and immediately Western journalists contacted me and put me on television and said, "What will happen now?" And I said, "Nothing. Hezbollah will continue the fight. His disciples will continue the resistance." Later on, when martyr Yahya Sinwar, when we saw his body, they again contacted me and they said, "Well, what happens now?" And I said, "There are thousands of Yahya Sinwars in Gaza." They don't understand that by killing the prime minister of Yemen, his martyrdom is not going to turn the tide in favor of the Israeli regime. By murdering the leaders of Hamas and Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah, they're not going to turn the tide. We've been told that Hezbollah is badly weakened. But look at the United States. They've mobilized Al-Qaeda in Syria. Their proxies in Syria, Jolani and ISIS and Al-Qaeda on the one hand, the Israeli regime in the south, and also their proxies in Lebanon, the Lebanese forces and the fascists and pro-Western parties in Lebanon, all of them have been mobilized with Saudi money, and yet they're fearful of attacking the resistance. They're fearful of trying to disarm the resistance. Why? Because Hezbollah is very powerful, and Hezbollah is not going to go away, and Hezbollah's arms are not going to go away. So the resistance is much stronger than they pretend. They like to say that the resistance in Yemen has been dealt a major blow, or in Gaza they've been defeated, or in Lebanon they've been decimated. The reality is they are steadfast and strong. The real loser in all this has been the West and the Israeli regime. The West, their image has been destroyed across the world. No one will ever again believe Western claims with regards to human rights or women's rights or anything else. And the Israeli regime has been seen as genocidal across the world. This alone is more damaging than anything that the Israeli regime has imposed upon the rest of the region. Each of these martyrs in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Iran, in Yemen, and in Iraq as well, and a couple in Jordan, all of them have contributed to this enormous defeat of the Israeli regime, and this destruction of the image of the West, and especially the Israeli regime, will have grave consequences for the regime in future. This regime cannot last. It may take a while, it may take a few years, but this regime is dying.
Well, you have your leaders and your icons. I have mine. Che Guevara said, "It matters not if I fall. What matters is how many men come forward to pick up my rifle." And all the signs are that all the martyrs in Gaza have been replaced by 10, 20, 50, or 100 more fighters racing to pick up their rifles. Let's turn, Professor, to the big enchilada. You must be, as the rest of us are, reading hourly of the imminence of an Israeli attack on your country. First of all, do you think that is going to happen? And secondly, if it definitely is going to happen, why don't you get your retaliation in first?
Well, actually, I'm at a friend's home and we're here for dinner. And so that shows how fearful the people of Iran are. We're all living our normal lives, and we're not really following this news as closely as some people are online. The Israeli regime, as you pointed out earlier before we began our discussion, they lost the war. We know that from the fact that Steve Bannon has said it at least twice, that they were being battered and Trump saved them. And we know that at the end, during the last 3 or so days of the war, almost all Iranian missiles went right through these layered air defenses that the Americans and the Israelis and others had collaborated to put together to prevent Iranian missiles from striking their targets. Iran won that war. And back then it was a blitzkrieg attack, of course, illegal, with the full support of the United States and the Europeans and the International Atomic Energy Agency facilitating it by lying. But now Iran is much stronger because Iran has, the Israeli regime gave it its best shot. It was supposed to be a regime change operation. So they used everything they had. And the Iranians now know the capabilities of the Israelis, the regime, and the Iranians have been dealing with their own internal issues, security, with their military shortcomings. Everything is being reorganized and rearranged, and Iran is producing more advanced missiles as well. So if we go to round 2, Iran is going to hit much harder, and the Israeli regime will pay a much heavier price. And I think they know that. I think that those who are sane in the Israeli regime, in the military, know that it's not a good idea. But the issue is that Netanyahu is not pursuing the interests of the Israeli regime. He's pursuing the interests of Netanyahu. And these 2 years have all been destructive for the regime. There's been no victory for the Israelis. A regime that is despised across the world can never call itself victorious. So this regime does not have an interest in attacking Iran. But since yet Netanyahu knows that as soon as the war ends, he will be out of power, and probably soon afterwards he'll be in jail, he will continue these wars. So there's a good chance that at some point there will be a military conflict between the Israeli regime and Iran, despite the fact that it won't end well for the regime. I think I know what your next question is, but I'll still wait.
Well, my next question is to illustrate the point that both you and I have made this evening. Israel is a part of the West. Its crimes are a part of the crimes of the West. And now the European Union have installed the so-called snapback sanctions to try to further damage the Iranian economy. And so it kind of underscores my earlier question, which you deftly avoided. Why don't you get your retaliation in first?
Oh, I forgot to respond to that. I thought you were going to ask the question that you told your the gentleman who called you about a nuclear strike, and you said you're going to leave that for me. I thought that's what you're going to ask.
Yeah.
I don't know if Iran will strike first or not, George. Iran never accepted a ceasefire. Iran accepted a halt, a cessation in violence. There's no agreement. Iran did not accept anything. We just stopped. They said that if they stop, we will stop. And the Israeli regime has been making threats against Iran. So it's clear that if the Iranians strike the Israeli regime, the world actually, George, I think you and I both know this, the world will celebrate.
Tell me, in relation to the caller, if Iran's new capabilities, new organization, begins to prevail in another round, as I'm certain that it would. The man's question, and it's a question on everybody's lips, will Israel fire nuclear weapons against Iran in those circumstances?
Well, I don't know. And sorry, I got cut off for a second. I don't know. But the current head, the new head of the Supreme National Security Council, before he became the head of this body, he said, when he was the advisor to the leader, but he didn't have this position. He said that if Iran's security, if Iran's existence is at risk, then Iran's nuclear posture will change. And I think it's very clear what he meant. And therefore, the smart thing for the Israeli regime and its backers in the West to do would be to back off, because Iran's technological capabilities are clear to everyone. And I think Iran's missile capabilities have shown that. But I just want to say one thing very briefly about the snapback, because my voice got cut off. The snapback is more of a psychological issue. People in Iran are wondering what impact it will have, and it will have an impact in the short term on the markets. But it won't have a major impact, if any, in the long term on the Iranian economy, because those UN Security Council resolutions which were passed, and they were passed at a time when the United States was the hyperpower, and Russia, China, and others were much weaker than today. But those sanctions had to do with the nuclear program and Iran's military capabilities. It has nothing to do with the economy. And the United States has already imposed maximum pressure sanctions. These will not be new sanctions that the Iranian people will have to deal with. So it is a psychological effect which will go away after a few weeks when the UN Security Council resolutions will be reinstalled. I, of course, have said many times that I think that this was the JCPOA, or the nuclear deal, could have been negotiated much better, and we should not have had this snapback provision. But in any case, it is not going to have that sort of impact. And the world has changed. And the Russians and the Chinese, alongside the Iranians, have said that the snapback by the Europeans is not legitimate, because they are the side that violated the deal, not the Iranians, and they did not abide by the provisions to bring the snapback. So we live in a different world today, George, and you've seen how the leaders of well over 20 countries have gathered together in Tianjin, including the Iranian president, for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. We're living in a new world. And the West and the United States and the Europeans in particular, they are losing their influence. And the Europeans, by the way, by imposing this snapback, they will lose their last foothold in Iran. They will never have any special status in Iran again. They burned their bridges with the Russians, with the Chinese, and now with the Iranians. And they can just go back and forth to Washington like the little doors that they are, and continue to go downhill for the decades to come because of the policies that they currently pursue. So the snapback in the long run hurts the Europeans, because that was their only foothold in Iran. That was the JCPOA was the agreement where the Iranians and the Europeans would get together and talk. If there's no JCPOA, there's no need for us to talk with the Europeans anymore.
I mean, talk about Orientalism. You referred there to the SCO conference in Tianjin, and more than half the world is represented there. The leaders of the most important and biggest countries in the world are there. Biggest economies are there. Biggest concentration of wealth are there. Yet, I promise you, Professor, not a single whisper of this extraordinary summit where the Indian president is warmly embracing the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, after decades of war, where the isolated Russians are right at the center of real-world events. Not a whisper of the existence of this gathering has yet appeared on any mainstream British broadcaster. That's Orientalism for you, isn't it?
Absolutely. But these are the same people who for 2 years have been trying to hide the genocide in Gaza and try to justify the mass slaughter and the crimes against humanity that are being carried out on a daily basis by the Israeli regime. These are the same people who've been telling us until just a few months ago that Russia is losing the war in Ukraine. They've been lying to their people for many years. But over the last few years, as the decline of the West has been increasing in pace, their lies have become more outrageous, and their reporting has become more like the reporting of the Soviet Union during the Soviet times. They have no credibility among their own people. They have no credibility across the world. They had an opportunity, George, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when the United States was the hyperpower. They had a lot of control. A lot of people gave up ideology during that period when we had reached the end of history, as Fukuyama said back then. And a lot of people put resistance aside. And the United States and the Europeans squandered that moment. And they've been waging war after war against people across the world. And they've been waging war, economic war, against their own people as well. And so in much less than 30 years, it's ever since in the 2008, let's say, it's 2007 and 8 and 9 when we had the economic crisis. Ever since then, it's become clear for many people that the West is in deep trouble. It is completely corrupt, and the media has no credibility. And what we're seeing today is far worse than what we saw in the previous decades.
I mean, thank you very much, as always, Professor Seyed Marandi, Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, and all-round sage. Is Tony Blair a war criminal? Yes or no? 36,000 people have voted. I'll give you 7 more minutes to cast your vote. See if I can get that to 40,000 votes. I'll take a quick break, then it's your calls, right up to Gayatri's social media news roundup. I promise you, the rest of the show is worth watching too. Stay tuned.
What a great show this is! I listened to it, I thought, wow, what a great show. I've called.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Let's go to Wales, where Jackie wants to talk about Palestine. Jackie, welcome.
Hi, George. Thanks for taking my call. I wonder what you thought. I just wanted to ask your opinion, basically. I mean, I think we don't need the International Criminal Court to tell us this is a genocide. We can see it. I can see it with my own eyes. Everybody else can see what's going on there. And I just think that Gaza is now what I would say is a crime scene. And I don't understand. I probably do understand, actually, because Netanyahu seems to be doing what the hell he wants. But I think shouldn't there be representatives from the ICC or people going in there now? And also I thought, who is actually recording these deaths and recording the people that are dying? Because I really, really think that people have to be held accountable at the end of this for what's gone on. What I'm really concerned about is that they're going in there basically to hide exactly the genocide that they're committing, and that there's going to be people who have died and have now been recorded. And I lost my brother 3 weeks ago. My brother died 3 weeks ago, and he exists to me. You know, he was a person, and we mourn him, and we're allowed to do that. And I see these people, and I think there's nobody recording these people. The hospitals have gone, and I just think surely the international court should be involved, saying, you know, you can't just go in now and make it what you want. Surely the court should be going in and saying, you know, basically get out of here. We wouldn't have let the Germans go into Auschwitz and after they'd done what they'd done. I just don't understand it.
Well, first of all, my condolence on the recent loss of your brother, Jackie. Very sorry to hear that. And I'm sorry I don't have better news for you. There is no court. The ICC is now effectively defunct. The Americans have threatened and withdrawn visas and cut off emails, forced Google to terminate the email addresses of the top officials of the ICC. They have caused the suspension of the chief prosecutor, the British KC, Mr. Khan, on charges of sexual harassment of women, one woman. Although Netanyahu, showing extraordinary knowledge of the situation, referred to 4 women during this week. So that means 3 other women are about to come forward. Netanyahu will make sure of that. So Khan is effectively on gardening leave. The ICC itself is effectively operating under severe, heavy manners. They are restricted in what they can do and where they can go. And the British and German governments have supported these measures against the ICC. And very few governments have opposed it, and none have done anything about it. Unless you were referring to the ICJ. Well, you'd have to have a long memory now to those heady days when the ICJ was putting Israel on trial for genocide. But what happened to it? The one African judge who backed Israel to the nth degree on the International Court of Justice is now the head of the International Court of Justice. An evangelical maniac, the only person in Africa that they could find to support Netanyahu, is in love with Netanyahu and Israel, and she's now in charge of the International Court of Justice. All of it was hot air. It was beautiful to behold, to see the Irish barrister, advocate, brilliantly take Israel's conduct apart to see South Africa resplendent in its liberated colours, bringing this case, to see other countries joining it. But what happened to it? It was all just hot air. Now, of course, it played its part in making sure that a very clear majority of the world's population knows more than they would have otherwise. But in terms of accountability, I mean, you say, forgive me, Jackie, I don't mean to be unkind, and many people say it all the time, there has to be accountability. No, there should be accountability, but there does not have to be accountability, because the only reason the Nazis were hanged at Nuremberg is because the anti-fascist war was won, and the jurists of the victor countries made sure that the court, the Nuremberg tribunal, took place, and that some, very little actually, far fewer than there ought to have been, were hanged. Others were allowed to commit suicide to avoid the indignity of the gallows. But who's the victor in Gaza? The victor in Gaza is the United States and its auxiliary Israel. So there isn't going to be any accountability. There should be, and on the judgment day, if there is one, there will be, but on this earth, in this life, there will be no accountability. And I have a duty to tell you that, because to do otherwise would be to encourage an illusion. Political power comes out of the barrel of a gun, and all the guns are with them. And the guns that are not with them are not ready to fire yet in relation to the Palestine question and to force accountability in Gaza. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try. We should try to make legal cases in our own countries against the conduct of our own governments. Of course we should. If nothing else, it will unsettle and keep busy our enemies. But I can't allow you and others to harbor the illusion that there's any law involved in this. It was all lipstick on a pig. So, sorry to give you that bad news, Jackie. I sense the pain and the sincerity in your voice, and I wish I could give you a better answer. Is Tony Blair a war criminal? Yes or no? The poll has closed. 35,716 people have voted, and 99, 97, 97, 98, and thanks to Patreon, 100% say yes, he is. Now, MOATS big donors tonight. If you've been waiting for your name to come up on the Wall of Fame after making a donation to MOATS, listen out now, because here are tonight's top donors who've been onto the MOATS.tv website. Lance Rock, James Cole, Matthew Stephen, Billo Gali, and Irene Vordis. A big thanks to every single one of you for all your generosity. And for those who can only leave the proverbial widow's mite, which nowadays comes in at £1, €1, or $1, please do it. Please don't have me thinking that you watched me work for 2 hours for nothing and didn't think it was worth leaving a penny. So, Felix is in Vancouver, and he wants to talk about his Gaza Day Off protest idea, which we heard about on the show on Wednesday. And it was a very good idea. Felix, welcome back.
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Galloway. Can you hear me clearly?
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Yes, very clearly.
Okay, perfect. Well, first thing is I just wanted to thank you, because last week when I I hate to say it, but when I pitched you, I was like, I wasn't sure if you're going to like go for it. And you gave such an awesome endorsement that I kept watching it back and like, you just nailed everything so perfectly. So I just wanted to thank you. I showed it to my mom and she was like so surprised. So, you know, you mentioned agitating. Thank you. You mentioned agitating and organizing. And, you know, I actually have a lot of experience organizing in the Muslim community from years ago. And then I bowed out of it because of so many politics and things. And I got so tired of it. And, you know, something you said at the beginning of your show was, you know, these people like Angelarayner and these career opportunists. And it doesn't just exist at that level. You know, even in my local mosque, we contacted about 40 organizations this past week in Canada, and only one got back to me. So it's like, you know, this career opportunism and the spinelessness, you know, we see it in all levels. It doesn't matter what religion, what thing it is. But, you know, we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep messaging other organizations. And now we're going to be pitching other countries. And, you know, whether it's Rayner, Netanyahu, you know, Donald J. Trump, all these people, they're just figureheads. These leaders, they don't care. All they care is about their pocketbook, and they rely on our collective complacency. They rely on each individual. They've beat us down so much that we think we're powerless and that our individual actions don't mean anything. So, you know, I just want to remind people on October 8th, Wednesday, no work, no spending. If you're on your way to Tesco's right now, you're at your aunt's house, you're in your backyard, you know, your uncle owns a samosa shop, tell them to close the damn shop for this day, because, you know, this is the only way that these leaders listen, is when their pocketbook is affected. That's all they care about is money. You know, I worked in IT, and, you know, I know how much Microsoft and these companies, how they all contribute and use our methods of labor to fund killing my own brothers and sisters. If I go buy a chocolate bar, I don't want my 5 cents of tax to go and be helped build some missile or something from Israel. And, you know, the last thing I'll say is that, you know, I don't want to make these calls. It's very uncomfortable for me. I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert, but I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm going to keep pestering you, and I'm going to keep pestering these organizations that do, I want to swear so bad, but I won't, but do nothing. And so, you know, any words of encouragement you have, and, you know, you mentioned something last time was the trade unions, and we actually went and reached out to them, and we're hoping to hear back at some point. But if you have any advice or, you know, anything you suggest, I will be watching this again and again. So thank you.
I mean, we have to get a flying flyer that is easily digestible, that we can fire around on social media, so that everyone knows the two demands and the appropriate date when this is going to happen in as big a part of the world as we can achieve, namely, take the day off, and if you can't take the day off, spend no money on that day. That's a small thing, and yet a big thing. And from small things come big things. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And of course, we will not save Gaza by performative actions like these. But we must perform them. What else are we going to do? We're not going to Gaza to fight and die, so we have to do whatever that we can do, and to keep doing it, and to keep coming up with different ways of doing it, different ways of drawing attention to the cause. Someone told me when I was in Gaza once the following story. Every morning on the beach in Gaza, thousands of starfish are washed up on the sand. And if they don't get swept back in, they die there. And every morning, an old man was going along the beach, picking up the starfish and throwing them back into the sea. But there were thousands upon thousands of them, and only one old man throwing the starfish back into the sea. And someone said to the old man, "What are you doing? How many of these starfish can you pick up? There's thousands of them on this beach alone. It will make no difference." And the man said, "Well, it made a difference to those starfish that I did throw back into the sea." Felix in Vancouver, keep plugging this and make sure you've got decent artwork to promote it effectively. And we'll do everything we can here. Comments, Ned1724, Lamy puts his Jaffa cakes on his expenses. Well, for foreign viewers, Jaffa cakes are a very calorific chocolate biscuits that David Lamy eats a very great many of. He's twice the man he used to be. He's becoming, in front of our eyes, Idi Amin himself. And he's putting them on public expense. Christina Hines says, Angela Rayner kicked us all in the teeth. I once supported her, a working class woman, but I was mistaken. She is a disgrace. Well, Christina, it's big of you and good of you to acknowledge that. I always knew that she was a disgrace, but it's a matter of great rejoicing for me that you who once supported her now are ready to make a statement like that. Skip Ad 82 says, Tony's heart is in good shape. It's never been used. That's Tony Blair, he means. Dark Matter Zombies says, who is the greater war criminal? Genocide Joe, Genocide Don, or Netanyahu? That's a very good question. Might be a poll question. My editor will no doubt be writing it down. Centaurus says they have more bollocks than any of us. Stay safe. I think he means the heroes on the flotilla. Let's go to Virginia, where Saad wants to talk on the India-Iran Defense Treaty. Saad, on you go, sir.
Hi there, Mr. Galloway. This is Saad speaking. Just wanted to point out a few things. Over the last few weeks, I started pondering more and more into some historical facts from before. I did come across something that related about 2.5 decades ago, probably in 2001. India and Iran signed a defense treaty with each other. There apparently, since then, there has also been some troops presence of the Indians because they are trying to run the economic hub near the Pakistan-Iran border area. However, based on the last few weeks and what we've been seeing on the news regarding United States and Israel versus Iran, I was thinking, would not the public over here in the United States and the United Kingdom be concerned about such a defense treaty, particularly when trying to engage in the conflict at the first place? So this is a little bit mind-baffling. I really couldn't understand this, along with the fact that none of this was ever even talked about in the general public of America or general public of the United Kingdom regarding the Indians and Iran having a defense treaty going back to 2.5 decades ago. So what is your thought regarding this?
Well, again, this is the University of the Airwaves. I know nothing about that defense treaty, and it's an intriguing possibility. But my overarching point would be it's entirely a matter for the Indians and the Iranians, whether they have a defense treaty with each other or not. And it's none of London or Washington's business, or for that matter, Virginia. Gayatri will be coming up with the social media news roundup imminently, but I think I may have to take the legend Erobos in New York on Yemen before she gets to me. Erobos, welcome to the show.
Greetings and salutations, and a salubrious late evening, day, or whatever time it is that you, the Honorable George Galloway and Clan Galloway, the family forever strong and forever mighty.
Thank you.
Shout out to the wonderful MOATS audience, the beautiful Jaya, always effective and always making contact, always caring and concerning. I just a few very short points, preambles as they were. I thought Tadhg Hickey, I've been practicing to say that, even though my grandfather was half Irish, half Scottish, and Venezuelan.
Really?
I don't know how to pronounce much of the old words in the old Gaelic tongue. In any event, towards the end of what he was saying, I was in tears. I was deeply touched by what he said. However, he made a remarkable entry point. He took something out of the collective memory hole, which is important for all of us to remember, because even I myself completely forgot about this, that there have been successful breakthroughs in the Gaza flotillas in the past. Not the boat movements, the boat penetrations, they have been successful to break the siege. And I didn't consider that. I didn't think about that. Because they have such a stranglehold on the media that many of us, due to either lax memory or subliminally, we don't think any of the boats go through. They just get destroyed. So that was very, very important and inspiring, on top of everything he said, putting himself at great risk as necessary. I was looking at something here, two things. The One Palestine movement, the One Palestine X page, it was preemptively blocked, and now it's been banned. So you were banned preemptively before you can even get a chance to put it on, and then they went on and full on ban it. And I was just looking at the guy Dennis, the historian. He was just putting that on there. And another thing I just saw a few minutes back is that they want to put Greta Thunberg in a terror cell. There was something like what they was doing to the Belmarsh treatment, right? They put you in a dungeon, what they were doing to, anyway, I'm drawing a blank for some crazy reason. Yes, Julian Assange, thank you, from Australia. So onto Iran, onto Yemen. I had a thought as you were speaking, and you've always harped on this point as necessary, that why these individuals, and when the Russians do it too, but I don't know for sure. I don't know any of what I'm about to propose is for sure, but it has to be they know what you know and what I know. But it has to be that, they know that if they go into apartment buildings with their families, they'll be targeted and destroyed. If they go into a tent or some open community center, if I could find it on a map, of course, the Zionist terrorist occupation colony, the reprehensible, incorrigible so-called Israelis, the Zionists, they can find it with the best technology in the world that they have. And it occurred to me that it is possible that these people are offering their lives as a way of inspiring and motivating the following generations that you have got into in detail in your monologue, as well as with the magnificent Professor Seyed Marandi. It's just a thought. It's not based on anything I've seen, or it's just an inspiration that came to me as I was watching and listening. It is because these are people that are complete and full believers, 360% in the afterlife. They have no shadows of doubt. I'm not religious, so I'm not a believer per se, but they absolutely believe to the point that they'll give their lives and anything and everything else. So it could be, at the risk of redundant, that they know they're going to be killed, they know they're going to be destroyed and targeted, but they also know and that it will inspire the future generations, and according to the fullness of their religious philosophy and ideology, that they will be going to paradise. So they have no problem giving up their lives. It's just a perspective, and I just want to share it.
Well, Tadhg Hickey made you cry, and now you're trying to make me cry. Of course, there's much in what you say, but as a believer, I always follow this rubric. Trust in God, but tie up your camel, just in case. So we have a duty to stay in the fight for as long as we can. And by staying in that fight and how we conduct ourselves in that fight and how correct we prove to be in our analysis, we will aggregate more and more human capital in support of what it is we're trying to achieve, which is a better world for all. And so I wish that Che Guevara had not been gunned down. Of course, when he was gunned down, he became a martyr, and his image, it helped that he was fantastically handsome. If he'd looked like Khrushchev, it would have been less effective as an image. But Che Guevara's image has recruited millions, hundreds of millions probably, inspired hundreds of millions. And when the US very foolishly, and only a decade or so ago, finally published Che's death photographs, pictures of the corpse in death, and he looked so like Jesus being brought down from the cross, this was another spectacular own goal by them. But it would have been better if Che had lived. It would have been better if Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah had not been in that bunker that day, and that they had not succeeded in murdering him. It would have been better if the martyr Sinwar had not been hunted down by that drone. Of course, he died heroically, and his image and his legend is forevermore. These are just facts of life, which my enemies should recognize and should comprehend. But it would have been better if he had lived to fight another day. So trust in God, but tie up your camel. Don't all gather together in one place in the middle of a war. Sure, your martyrdom will inspire, but it would have been far better if you had lived to continue the struggle. You know, there's no need for leaders to meet with each other in that kind of number, that kind of density. I mean, I don't even fly on the same plane with all my children, or get on the same train, or if I can, I don't even travel all of us in the same car, because it's just kind of better that some of us survive to continue the struggle. I don't mean in any way to demean or degrade or to be disrespectful to the martyrs in Yemen or any of the other martyrs that I have described. But we have a responsibility to try and stay alive, to try and continue the fight. And if we fall, as Che said, what matters then is how many people come to pick up our rifles. Erobos in New York, surprising us all again with the knowledge that he's part Scottish, part Irish, and part Venezuelan. I'm going to need to see the family tree of Erobos sometime soon. My good wife Gayatri is in the building, and she's been waiting till 5 past the hour. I hope she'll forgive me. What's rattling, Gayatri?
I'm sorry for being late, but I did have to get all the latest from my home country. As there has been an internet shutdown, I had to get my resources from friends and families alike.
Oh my goodness.
So ironically, only 2 weeks ago we were celebrating Indonesia's 80th Independence Day, and today the country is in flames. Two things. Firstly, the approximate cause for the protest nationwide is down to the rise of living costs and high unemployment rates. Now, we have that here in Britain. Imagine that in Indonesia, the fourth largest country in the world, and still without any significant welfare security nets. So, and in these circumstances, the parliament somehow introduced a law in which they allowed for housing benefits for its lawmakers up to the amount of $3,000, whereas per month, whereas the average income, formal income for Indonesians is $300. So by any metric, 10 times the average.
That's just for the housing.
Just for the
plus
housing.
the wages.
And any other perks like foreign trips and everything. So this has, in combination with other scandals coming from the parliament, like them dancing within the parliament building whilst the nation is suffering, really, has caused the first protest on Monday where they tried to attack the parliament building. This was quickly condemned by the parliamentarians, by all the lawmakers, and even ridiculed. They called the protesters stupid and whatsoever. They can do that. They can afford to do that because Indonesia relies on is a system based on a feudal one. So they could do that. The political unrest, the public unrest continued until Thursday when, during one of the protests, one of the armored police vehicles drove over and eventually killed a 21-year-old motorcycle taxi driver. Wow. It was a hit and drive. There you go. It's on the screen right now, and it's on full view. We've got all the angles of it, and it's so caught cold-handedly. So this then went viral, obviously, and the protest spread outside of the capital, as far away east, as far away west, and it's gone like out of hand. I mean, one of the regional parliament building in Makassar, which is on the island of Sulawesi, quite far off Jakarta, was completely burnt. Completely burnt. Imagine 4 houses of lawmakers have been stormed in, vandalized and looted. I mean, there are ridiculous videos of people carrying out refrigerators, pianos, cash out of these lawmakers' houses who were not home at that time of event. So where we stand now then is that today President Prabowo has addressed the press and the nation, and
he had to cancel going to China as a result of all this. He would have been at the SCO, yeah?
The big Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. He was supposed to go, his trip was cancelled, he sent his foreign minister instead because he had to address the nation and revoke these controversial perks and allowances.
Good.
Yeah, and apologies have now poured the internet and the press from the lawmakers apologizing for calling the protesters stupid, basically. Now, secondly, 2 weeks ago, I said that Indonesia was actually a CIA dream, right? With the coup d'etat of Sukarno placing a dictator, Suharto, who did everything to the West wishes. Now, what we see this week is reminiscent of what happened then in '98, when in the same background of economic turmoil, the monetary crisis of '97-'98 caused these protests, and as a result had Suharto step down, at being the end of the dictatorship. But it's also reminiscent of other protests of late that we've seen, like in Hong Kong, the umbrella movement. Anyone?
Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia. So I'm here to say, not to the liking of many of my countrymen, that we must be aware of this. Yes, the reasons and the causes for the protests are real, and so were those of the Arab Spring, right? But let's see, let me get back to this, okay? Let me get to this, because the cancellation of Prabowo going to Shanghai is a big thing, you know. The SHO, the SCO, is a huge summit that he was supposed to attend. And he is still due to attend the 80th anniversary of the World War II in China. We're not sure yet if he's still going, but if he's also having to cancel that, then that's two major events within Asia that Prabowo had to cancel.
Well, look, we've got no time really to develop this, but if you'll allow me to respond, sometimes things have the form of revolution, but the content of counter-revolution. I could give lots of examples, but because there's a lot of people running around burning down dysfunctional parliaments and attacking the lavish homes of disreputable parliamentarians, that looks revolutionary.
Yeah.
But it might not have a revolutionary intent. Yeah. It might not have a revolutionary ending, as many such things have been in the past. This could be, and Brianberletic, who we both respect, he strongly states...
Oh, he goes even further.
He strongly states that this is an American color revolution.
He goes further, yes.
They don't like the fact that Prabowo, the president, was going to China, is active in the BRICS.
He's open to China.
Active in the SCO.
Open to Russia.
Open to Russia.
So
they don't like... Now, I have nothing in common with the current government of Indonesia. So I'm not speaking for them. They wouldn't have had my vote. But if they're being overthrown or attacked and destabilized by the same forces that were operating in Georgia, that operated in the Maidan in the Ukraine, it would be not for the reasons that I would not vote for these people, but different reasons. Namely, their friendship with China, with Russia, and their deeper and deeper involvement in the BRICS and in the SCO. So keep us abreast of this. Goes without saying, I'm glad the parliamentarians got their excessive housing allowance taken off them. Maybe we could one day achieve that here in the United Kingdom. But I am now 13 minutes beyond the end of the show. So if you'll forgive me, I'll say goodnight to the audience and the people who make this show possible. Thank everyone who has donated. Urge you to donate. If you have not yet donated, at MOATS.tv or sponsor me on patreon.com/George Galloway. God willing, Gayatri and I will be back on Wednesday. Good night. Just for it.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Go get 'em, George.